All right, thank you. Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order, the Walker Planning Commission for February 17, 2021. First item on the agenda, calling the meeting to order. Next is reviewing the minutes from the last meeting, February 3. Any comments or changes concerning the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Tyler.
Support.
Supported by Scott to approve the minutes from the February 3 meeting. Tricia, can we go through a roll call vote, please?
Yeah. Terry?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Joe? Joe? Can you hear us? We'll come back to Joe. Tom?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Joe? Yeah? Did I miss anyone?
Okay. Next item on the agenda is general public comment. This is an opportunity for those joining us this evening to provide a comment at this point on a non-agenda item. If there's an issue or a concern that you have within the community, it's an opportunity to be recognized and have an opportunity for up to 3 minutes to share your comments. If you're on computer, if you could raise the virtual hand, we'll be able to recognize you. If you called in on the phone, I believe is it *6 or *9?
*9 to raise hand, *6 to unmute, but I don't see anyone on a phone.
Okay. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the regular agenda. First item is case number 20-879, final area site plan review. This involves a proposed Aloft hotel and townhouse suites on Walker Avenue, 2864 Walker. If we can turn it over to Planning Director Tricia.
Terry, we need to remove it from the table. I make that motion.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion to remove it from the table. Is there support?
Steve.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Steve to remove the project from the table. All those in opposition to that, please indicate by saying aye. Okay, we'll move forward into the conversation, and Planning Director Tricia Anderson, if you can lead us into the conversation.
Okay, so since I've been out for the last week, I do not have presentations prepared for this meeting, but I do plan to go through all of the highlights from my staff reports, and I'm just going to share my screen so that I can show some graphics when I'm referencing. Okay, so again, this project is for the Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites being proposed at 2864 Walker Avenue. And the action requested by the Planning Commission is to review the final area site plan for the Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. This is a final area site plan. The proposed lot size of the site is 5.21 acres. And this is a split that will result from the 11.2 acre parent parcel. It's part of the Meyer CPUD. And the future land use designation is business, northwest neighborhood, enterprise for community character designation. So again, this is off the end of Holton Court, and it's just north of the Mariott gas station on Walker Avenue between 3 Mile and the I-96 entrance ramp. And we have Jason Vander, Kodde of Fishbeck joining us to represent the property buyer, Walker Hotel Group, and the owner of the property is Meyer Incorporated. So I only have a few comments because this is our third go round with this agenda item. And this third time, the applicant has addressed most of my concerns. I just have a few minor manageable items that I would like to bring to your attention. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. I should have just kept it on share. So the main items that I would like to go through, if I can ever get to this little picture I'm looking for. The first one being that we asked the applicant to provide us with some truck turning movements and some site circulation. And so a few truck turning movements were provided, but there's one that concerns me just a little bit, which is if a truck is coming in, so picture your beer distribution truck from Founders or any kind of semi truck that comes in to deliver beverages. So they've created a designated loading zone here, but we need to make sure that trucks coming in through this entrance and heading over to this loading zone to unload for items being delivered to the WXYZ bar can actually make that movement without hitting anything. And so this is manageable. We've asked that the plans be revised so that we can see that a truck can get in here with no problem. And so that's recommended as a condition of approval. The other thing that I wanted to touch on briefly is landscaping. So the landscaping plan that was provided is acceptable. But if any changes are proposed to that landscape plan after this planning commission meeting, it would be helpful to allow staff to be able to work with the applicant to approve any changes to the landscape plan without the need for the applicant to go back to the planning commission. So I've added that as a recommended condition of approval. In the previous plans, the major item of contention with this plan was parking. And with all of the uses that are being proposed on this site, with the 2 hotels, the conference rooms, and the WXYZ Bar and Grill, that would require a total of 258 parking spaces. Previously, the applicant was asking for 207, and we weren't quite comfortable with that, knowing that there is a possibility for all these uses to be in use by not shared users all at the same time. And so this recent plan provides 244 spaces. And so the if you'll see on the screen here, I've highlighted the areas in pink where parking has been added to the site. And so a reduction in 14 spaces from that 258 required spaces is something that we can live with if the planning commission is inclined to approve that condition. We have not received any additional information on the WXYZ bar. Nothing has changed with that. They still plan on having that not be open to the public. We are okay with the building facade materials that have been proposed with the decorative cement panel and metal panels as primary facade materials. And I provided a list of the PUD benefits that they are asking for, and staff is okay with all of them. So at this point, we feel comfortable recommending a conditional approval of this plan, subject to the conditions that the applicant provide 4 sets of sealed plans reflecting all conditions of approval prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall provide a drawing of the retaining wall details, which is also mentioned in the city engineer's report, for sheet C510 that has been sealed by a structural engineer prior to the issuance of a building permit. And the applicant shall revise sheet C201 to provide additional truck turning movements for review and approval by the city engineer to ensure maneuverability prior to the issuance of a building permit. And the applicant shall work with staff to review and approve any changes to the landscape plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. And I would like to add one more condition there, that the applicant shall address all of the recommendations within the city engineer's report dated February 8th, 2021.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. Any comments or questions concerning the report? Okay. Next, we'll turn to City Engineer Scott Connors, and if you could bring us up to date on your reviews.
I sure can. My report's a little bit long, but that's because the chronology is kind of kept in place there so that you can still see the comments from the past. The new comments based off the most recent plan are shown in green, and there's really just 2 that are worthy of a little bit of discussion. And one is with the water main. We do now have public water main shown in Boyer Drive, which is the private north and south drive. So that would move to a staff review as the next step if this was to move forward, where we would go through and get all the construction agreements in place and escrows for inspection and all that kind of stuff. And then that would just take place as a public project. Also, they do have a private hydrant coming out of the building, so that they've got 2 opposite corners of the hotel covered, which was a big requirement for the fire department. So that should work out. And the last comment is related to the restoration detail in Holton Court. And as you know, we want to make sure that we get that on there so that we don't have arguments with contractors later in terms of how much gravel and sand and pavement and all that they put in. We want it written on the plan so it's very clear, so that the construction industry knows what they need to do to put that back together. So as long as that's shown on the plan in the revised drawing, we're okay moving forward.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments for Scott? Scott, do have one question with regard to your observation right from the beginning that there would be excess material removed from the site. If we were to ask the applicant to provide that information prior to the issuance of a building permit, would that be a sufficient timing?
They could provide it, but it'll be a little bit irrelevant, I guess, at that point, because if it's approved, then they just need to get the material moved out of there. And that'll just be part of the approved plan.
I didn't know whether where it was going to end up would be beneficial to the city to know that earlier rather than later.
That's absolutely correct. And when they come in and get a soil erosion permit for the site, if they're taking that fill material to somewhere else that's in the city, that site will also need a soil erosion permit so that we can kind of help keep track of it. But what it doesn't do is reduce just the overall number of trucks that would be in and out of there. And we don't bring this up on a lot of sites, but I think on sites where there's a tremendous amount of cut and fill, that does become part of what Planning Commission looks at in terms of the impact on the neighborhood and the road system. So yeah, it's a big number.
Okay, thank you. At this point in time, invite the applicant to just bring us up to date on where they are and their readiness to move forward.
Given Mr. Chairman, Jason Vander with Fishbeck, representing Aloft and Towneplace Suites. Appreciate you guys considering our application again this evening. Tricia and Scott have done a marvelous job of going through the drawings, making sure everything is in order. And we are satisfied with the conditions as recommended. We have no objections. As they've indicated, we've added extra parking spaces. We've added the water main, satisfied the fire chief, brought our landscaping plan up to current layout. And to the best of our knowledge, all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. So at this point, we are prepared to request a conditional approval. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Terry, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments or questions for Jason?
Yeah, I would like somebody to explain how that loading dock is going to work, how that truck is supposed to get in there and out of there.
Tricia, is it possible for you to bring up the page, the page of the document 5 of, let me think here, sorry, page 12 of 102.
My computer's really slow.
Okay, no worries. So in answer to the question, there's
If
two.
you have it, Jason.
Sure.
Jason.
Am I able to share screen a moment?
Yes, if Jason can, Jason.
Says that it's disabled, so.
Yeah, Jason can.
Try now.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to try to zoom in here just a little bit better. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get. In answer to Tom's question, Tom is curious, I believe, how the traffic is going to make a right-hand turn into the parking lot and a left-hand turn into the loading zone. So that is the move that we anticipate smaller vehicles like an Amazon delivery or a FedEx box truck would make. If it's a larger truck with a trailer, that would be too long for that sharp of a turn. The vehicle would have two other choices. They could continue to go around the hotel in the counterclockwise direction and then come into the loading zone from the east and hit that location. Or they could actually come in along Boyer Drive and make a left turn in here and then make a right turn to get into that same loading zone from the other direction. So that particular movement, while it may preclude a large trailer from making the move, will still accommodate most small vehicles. And the large vehicles will simply have to do a counterclockwise or a clockwise motion around the hotel in order to get there. So we'll provide a truck turning template to show the largest vehicle that can safely make it. And if there is a larger vehicle, there's two alternate routes for them to accomplish the same parking space.
So the loading zone is in the front door of the hotel.
That's correct. That's where most of the supplies and materials are brought into the facility. And it's not large volumes. It's fairly small volumes and fairly small deliveries. A lot of the hotel operation is self-contained with the laundry room, and the other services that they provide are self-contained within the building for the most part.
Well, other applicants have heard this comment before that, yeah, small trucks, right? And I'm gonna go, someday I'll take a picture of a 53 footer trying to make those maneuvers in there. So I think it's a poor location for a loading zone, but it's not my hotel.
Thank you, Tom. Any other comments or questions? Well, are we in a position now to entertain a motion for action on this request?
I'll make a motion, case number 20-879, motion for Aloft Hotel Towneplace Suites final area site plan. I make a motion to approve the final area site plan set last revision dated 1/28/21 for the Aloft Hotel and Towneplace Suites project within the Mariott CPUD located at 2864 Walker Avenue with a future address at 2160 Holton Court, as it does meet the standards set forth in the City of Walker zoning ordinance. Conditions of final area site plan approval. Number one, the applicant shall provide 4 sets of sealed plans reflecting all conditions of approval prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number two, the applicant shall provide a drawing of the retaining wall details, sheet C510, that has been sealed by a structural engineer prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number three, the applicant shall revise sheet C201 to provide additional truck turning movements for review and approval by the city engineer to ensure maneuverability prior to the issuance of a building permit. Number four, the applicant shall work with staff to review and approve any changes to the landscape plan prior to the issuance of occupancy. Findings of fact, the final area site plan conforms to the current and proposed City of Walker master plan. The final area site plan is in compliance with the approved Mariott CPUD PASP. The plan complements existing uses in the area.
Tyler?
Yeah.
I just would like to add the condition that the applicant shall work with the city engineer to address all of the items in his report dated February 8, 2021.
Condition number 5, the applicant will work with city engineer to address all points in the city engineer's report dated 2/8/21.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Joe?
Yep.
Got a motion by Tyler, supported by Joe, to conditionally approve the plan as described by Tyler just now. Any comments, questions concerning that motion? If not, we can go forward and go through a roll call vote.
Joe, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have trouble getting this thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we could live with this. I like the way we compromised on the parking. Tom had a good comment. I suspect these are going to be smaller trucks than maybe he visualized, but I think we're on the right track. We've seen these people 3 times. So I think we're getting together on this well.
Thank you, Joe. Tricia, if you could go through the roll call, please.
Okay. Tom?
I'm in favor of the project, but I'm dead opposed to that loading dock setup. That's a poor setup. So yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. Project's on its way. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. We look forward to submitting the drawings and working with Scott and Tricia in the future.
Next on the agenda is case number 20-883. This is a public hearing. It's a preliminary area site plan update and a final area site plan review for 2,000 square foot accessory building at 3525 Remembrance Road, Arsulowicz Mortuary. And Tricia, if you could lead us into the conversation, please.
Yeah, so a little bit of history on how this project got to the Planning Commission. Originally, I didn't think that this would have to go to the Planning Commission based on one interpretation of the zoning ordinance. After rereading, I decided, you know what, this does have to go to the Planning Commission. Then I discovered that this property is within a planned unit development. It's a pretty old planned unit development that was originally rezoned to CPUD in 1999. So it started with the Arsulowicz Mortuary, and the site, the plans that were provided to you show 4 total lots in this CPUD. So you have the Dollar General and the existing mortuary site, and then there's 2 future outlots to the north of those 2 sites that have been developed. And so according to the original PASP, which I will share my screen quickly here so that we can, so we know what we're looking at here. So according to the original plan, there were some conceptual lot line layouts, and sorry, I didn't anticipate this being so slow. Okay, so here is the original PASP. Oh my gosh, technology. We're getting there. Okay, so this is Remembrance Road over here. This is the existing mortuary. They have quite a big parking lot in the back to the north, and then there's the Dollar General building here. When the accessory building was first proposed, the site plan showed the building as being sort of right here, right over this line here, this conceptual line. So because of that, we staff said to the applicant that we should probably have you guys update this PASP so that you know, we don't have, if these 2 lots to the north do end up getting developed, we'll have a more of a clear, updated conceptual lot lines for you to go by, or for a potential developer to go by. And so this is what, so we have Steve Witte, who's representing the mortuary, and this is what he has come up with. So in the future, if these 2 lots are to be developed, you know, this obviously would end in a cul-de-sac road here. This would be a private street here. The building is being proposed right here, and what they've done is they've moved this conceptual lot line out so that there's at least 10 feet between the building and this conceptual lot line. And then he's put some updated building and parking lot layouts for these 2 outlots if they ever are to be developed. So at the time, it made a lot of sense for the property to be developed as a planned unit development, because development was really booming in 1999. There was a lot going on over in that Walker Village area. And it made a lot of sense to start securing easements for access. And if they decided they ever wanted to allow for future development on the northern end of this site, they'd have everything all ready to go for those sites to be developed. But obviously, there hasn't been any movement on development on those two sites. And so, you know, now that we have the property owner here requesting planning commission approval for the accessory building, we asked them to update the plan. So they've done that, and you know, staff is supportive of the changes, which are minor, for the updated PASP, and we don't have any issues with the proposed outbuilding. The city engineer has some comments related to utilities that will definitely come into play if those other two lots to the north ever do get developed. So I'm going to hand it off to Scott to go through his items on that.
Any comments or questions for Tricia? Okay, I'll turn to City Engineer Scott Connors, please.
So my report's pretty clean. Steve had made a couple changes that really improved the site and helped preserve the ability of that PUD to still develop in the future. You know, I think we're looking at trying to make sure they don't box out development in the future. We still want this to be a nice cohesive planned unit development. So I think that's a good change. And Steve was dangerously close to getting the mythical gold star for a perfect report. And then a couple of days ago, he sent me a note and he said, you're not looking at the right plan. So they are going to add sewer and water to this this garage. I think we can work it out. He's adjusted things a little bit so that, again, they're not boxing out that future northeast lot. But I don't think you guys have that copy of that plan. So it might be worth having you consider some kind of a comment or condition that the sewer and water be worked out with engineering.
Any comments or questions for Scott? All right. And applicant, Mr. Witte, any comment offer?
Commissioners, my name is Steve Witte from Nederveld, here tonight representing Arsulowicz Mortuary. With me on this call is Steve Kukluski, who is with Copper Rock Construction. They're the general contractor for the project. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. I think Tricia and Scott did a very good job giving you an overview of things. Just like to elaborate on a couple of different things. The project that's proposed is actually a very small project. It's a 2,000 square foot building that'll be used by Arsulowicz for storage. The building will be on the northwest corner of the existing parking lot, and it'll actually have access from the parking lot. The first plan that I had submitted actually showed it being accessed north of that stub street, and then Scott had the excellent idea of rotating it so that we're not impeding the possibility of a future road expansion. So that's what we did do. The preliminary area site plan that I submitted, that is strictly conceptual. The only reason we did that is to basically tell the city or let the city know that there's a possibility that potentially in the future something might happen. Arsulowicz didn't just want to ignore things and say, hey, there'll never be anything back there. So that's why I submitted that. It's strictly conceptual. I don't know. The footprints are 6,500 square foot buildings. The only reason I put that is because if you look back at the original PUD, it had shown 55 to 6,500 square foot buildings. So again, there's no plans in the immediate future, even near future, to do that future stuff. But we did want to not misrepresent, or tell the city, hey, that'll never happen, because we don't know, it might. So that being said, the project itself is very simple, very straightforward. The one slight hiccup, as Scott mentioned, is I think the plans maybe that you have, it doesn't show my last revision. And the only revision was that this building will actually potentially have a bathroom in it. And as a result, there is public sanitary sewer and water main immediately to the west of the building. And the plan that you have might not show those private service connections to the building. And then I have talked to Larry Olson from City of Grand Rapids about that, and he's okay with it. But as Scott said, he hasn't had a time to review that in detail, so we might have to tweak some things. But there's nothing layout wise that changed from what you have. So that being said, again, pretty straightforward project. If you have any questions on the site plan, engineering, or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions. Or if you have anything business or construction related, the other Steve could answer those for you. And thank you again.
Any questions for Steve?
The Arsulowicz is a West Side name. And how long have they been in business? It's a landmark.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if this other Steve knows offhand or not, but I know they've been around for a while.
I am not sure also, but
Oh,
they've
I'm
been on
guessing
the
here,
west
but I
side
think
for
the
a long
original
time.
PUD was from, I think Tricia mentioned it, it's like from 1990 something. So and the original PD I would think was for them. So my guess is that's when they moved to this site or around that time. That's just a guess.
Thank you.
Yep.
Steve, about how close will this building be to the lots immediately to the east?
To the east, if you give me a second, I've got it pulled up in CAD and I can tell you. 108 feet off the property line.
Okay. And I think in the plans it did show a representation of the exterior. Is that something we can put up on the screen?
I don't
I
know
can
if you're
share-
asking me that,
Oh.
Terry, or Tricia. I don't have that on. I'm on my wife's computer, so I don't have that on this computer. So I'm hoping Tricia maybe can pull it up.
I can. I just have to push the button.
Oh.
So the drive to this new storage facility is going to take away, what, 3 or 4 parking spaces that exist today?
Yeah, 3 parking spaces.
I'm
Now,
surprised. I'm surprised. I've been to many things at many funerals at the mortuary. I've never seen the back parking lot full. So I was also wondering why they just didn't take a section of the back parking lot and do it instead of adding on, but.
Yeah, I'm not quite frankly sure their reasoning for that. I don't know. I'm assuming occasionally they'll have a very large funeral and they need that parking.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some.
Parking, but I don't know.
And I know they shut down their Stocking Street facility, so they get some more business at this one, I'm sure.
Yep.
Steve, either Steve with Copper Rock or Steve Witte, what's the height of the sidewalls on the building?
They're 12 foot.
Okay. And what's the distance from the ground to the peak?
That's going to be about probably 17 foot.
Okay. Just in an effort in this type of a setting to give the audience a better idea on not only where it's going on the site, but also how large it may be. Any other comments or questions for the applicant?
I just looked up when they started. They started in 1938. So.
Oh wow, a lot longer than I thought.
Okay, this is advertised as a public hearing. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Stephen to open the public hearing. Tricia, if you could go through a roll call vote, please.
Yep. Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Oh, yes.
Pat,
Yep.
Terry,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yep.
Mark,
Yes.
Okay, public hearing is opened. Those out in the audience that would wish to comment or pose a question concerning this, there's a virtual hand feature. And then there's also the options of being recognized if you're on by phone. Anyone that would wish to offer a comment?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Pat,
Or
supported by Tyler to close the public hearing. All those in favor, all those not in favor of it, say aye. Okay, motion's carried to close the public hearing. Appears to be fairly straightforward. I think the staff has put together some pretty clear and straightforward conditions with the added condition that was suggested referencing city engineers comments.
Right, sewer and water.
Sewer and water, yes. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, case number 20-883, motion for Arsulowicz Mortuary Accessory Building Final Area Site Plan. I make a motion to approve the PASP update and the final area site plan set last revision dated 2/4/21 for the 2,000 square foot accessory building for Arsulowicz Mortuary within the Arsulowicz Brothers CPUD located at 3525 Remembrance Road Northwest, as it does meet the standards set forth in the City of Walker zoning ordinance. Condition of approval. Applicant agrees to work with city engineer on completing sewer and water connections to the project building that is acceptable to the city. Findings of fact, the final area site plan conforms to the current and proposed City of Walker master plan. The final area site plan is in compliance with the approved Arsulowicz Brothers CPUD PSP. The plan complements existing uses in the area.
Okay, we have a motion by Tyler.
Or
Scott, any questions concerning the motion? Being on, Tricia, if you could please call roll call, please.
Tom,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Scott,
yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Hey, motion carried. Thank you very much. Looks like a good project.
Yep. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Okay, last item on the agenda is case number 21-003. This is as well a public hearing, final area site plan review. Relates to a proposed Starbucks at 4370 Lake Michigan Drive, Northwest. And Tricia, if you could lead us into the conversation, please.
Okay. I'm going to attempt to share my screen again. All right, so this is a request for final area site plan review, and the action requested by the Planning Commission is to review the final area site plan for 2,241 square foot drive-through building for Starbucks, and to provide an approval with or without conditions, denial, or tabling of the request. So this property address is at 4370 Lake Michigan, and this is lot C1 of the Westown PUD. This lot is 1.47 acres, and it is zoned Westown CPUD. Future land use designation for this lot is mixed use, and it's within the neighborhood corridor as a community character designation. And then we have Mitchell Harvey of Stonefield Engineering and Design joining us tonight, representing the folks from Starbucks. So this is one of the last remaining, or it's one of 4 remaining lots within the Westown commercial PUD. And originally, the PASP for this development called for a Starbucks at lot C5. So I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but the Starbucks is pursuing development at lot C1. Both are smaller lots and could only support something like a small drive-through. So the size of this lot is acceptable for this size of a development. So I'm just going to go through some of my highlights. We had a site plan review committee meeting, and the applicant received a lot of feedback from staff, and they've addressed most of our concerns. And I just have a few minor comments that are manageable that I'll just go through quickly here. So the first one that I'll mention, the first item, is that the primary facade material that's being proposed for this building is the EIFS, or as we call it, EFIS, or exterior finish, or exterior insulation finish system, which you have seen a few proposals for this type of finish, and we've kind of already set a precedent that this is not a good material when it comes to long-term, because for various reasons. And so we have recommended that the applicant provide a material that is acceptable per the ordinance and the facade design standards. However, since it's a planned unit development, the Planning Commission has discretion to accept this facade material if they wish. But I should mention that we've kind of set a precedent to try and rule out or not allow this type of facade material just because it's not good for the long term. So the next item that I'll touch on quickly here is they've provided a signage package where they have provided wall signs, dimensions, and a ground mount sign up along the Lake Michigan Drive frontage. One thing that please correct me if I'm looking at this incorrectly. But to me, it appears that there should be some sort of signage at this drive approach that indicates that this is one way only, because cars are coming in this way to enter the site, but they can't turn in this approach because this is for cars entering the drive-through, and they have revised the plan to provide for an escape lane. And so these lanes are both going this way. So I've added as a condition, recommended condition of approval that some do not enter or one-way signage be placed at this approach. The next item that is also manageable, they have proposed, the applicant has proposed a little bit of landscaping. I think it was 2 trees and like 9 shrubs. It's a small site, so, and it's also encumbered by a lot of easements for ingress, egress, and cross access. And so there really is not a ton of space for landscaping, but I would like to suggest that they dress up the front or the frontage areas out here. This is Lake Michigan Drive. So this is just a little snippet of some suggested landscaping that could easily be added to this end of the site to still, you know, have have some more curb appeal and still comply with our landscaping requirements. And so I've asked that the Planning Commission allow the applicant to work with staff to submit a revised landscaping plan prior to the issuance of a building permit. And another, one last item here, and I think I should probably pull up the site plan to talk about this one. But the site, as I mentioned, it's pretty small, it's pretty constrained. And it does not show any truck turning movements. And so I've asked that the applicant provide some truck turning movements because there's also not a loading zone. And even though it's been indicated by the applicant that the loading will only take place during or during when the business is closed, we don't really have any way to regulate that. Trucks could easily come during the day if that's when that particular delivery can be there, and hey, they might happen to be open still. So there should be some kind of a loading zone. I know the applicant would like to discuss that a little bit further to try to see if the Planning Commission would be comfortable with waiving that requirement. But it's important to know that we can still have good site circulation and have delivery trucks, because the possibility exists that it would happen at the same time. So I've added that as a recommended condition of approval. And then we also have some items that the city engineer has outlined in his report that the applicant will need to address as well.
Okay, thank you, Trish. Thank you, Tricia. Any questions or comments for Tricia at this point? Okay, thank you. We'll turn it over to City Engineer Scott Connors.
Couple easy ones for me. As this development starts to mature, that little traffic circle at the entrance is going to become a little bit more troublesome. And if you go out there in fresh snow, you can see that nobody goes around the circle the right way right now. So I think it's time to have a sign put up there. People are still going to violate it. There's no way around that. But I think having a sign that's going to help at least delineate who's in the right if there's an accident or something like that. And my hope would be those would all be low speed, because it's obviously a low speed area. So generally just getting some kind of a traffic circle or roundabout sign on that circle. And then secondly, their gas main connection is shown across the main driveway there, which also serves, a whole bunch of other stuff with the apartments and other businesses in there. So we ask that they do that with a directional bore, unless there's some real serious reason why they can't. We want to make sure that that was still maintained for access. That's it, just those two items.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions or comments for Scott at this point? Okay, as far as the development group, is there a representative that would like to offer additional comments?
Yeah, my name is Mitch with Stonefield Engineering, and then with me from the development group is Rachel Miller, as well as Gabe Shookman. They're from Walker Retail Management. They're the ones developing the site. And then we also have Bo Wynn with the Detroit Architectural Group, who put together the architectural plans. I would like to just kind of first off thank Tricia and Scott for being so helpful for the preliminary site plan review process. It was really good to get in front of them and kind of go over the project and really get their thoughts and feelings on what we're proposing here. Ultimately, coming out of the review comments that we received, I think the conditions for approval, I think we're agreeable to most of them, but there are two of them that we would like to discuss in a few more details. One of them being the facade material and the other one being the designated loading zone. Since Bo's on, I'll have him touch on the facade material, but I'll just jump in front and discuss the loading zone. Really, Starbucks operations, like Tricia stated, rely on a off hours loading. All their operations occur during off hours. I do understand that, there's no way to police that or control that, but I think it doesn't behoove Starbucks to have loading operations, people bringing in, coffees, snacks, that kind of thing during time of operation. So we would ask that we can delineate an area to be, called our loading zone. We would just ask that it not be striped out because that'll likely take place in the bypass lane through the drive-through lane. So we wouldn't want it striped out to kind of discourage people from using that requested lane that I think Scott or Tricia wanted us to show on our plans. And as far as the vehicle movement into that lane, we'll definitely provide a truck turning template showing that Starbucks's box trucks can, get out of the site without, shutting down major circulation to the site. As far as the landscaping plan, I think it would be great. Me, the team, and Tricia can work together to kind of develop a plan that works for both parties. So beyond that, I'm going to hand it over to Bo to kind of touch on the facade of the building. And thank you for your time and happy to answer any civil questions.
You're
muted.
Bo.
There we go. How's that?
That's good.
Better. Bo Wynn, principal with Detroit Architectural Group. Thanks, Mitch, for the handoff. Tricia, if you could pull up that elevation, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. Let me get to it before I share my screen. I think it'll be faster that way.
I could share mine. I've got it actually up on another, because I wanted to share it and go on take a little Google walk too. If we could.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? I think that would probably be easier so you can.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
If
I can do this right. Don't try this at home. There we go. Which screen are we seeing here? Did I do it right?
We're seeing Google.
Are you seeing Google?
Yep.
Okay. Right here, you see my cursor move?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the site, and here is Wilson Avenue, of course, and Lake Michigan. So we took our visual cues from early on, and I apologize up front with regard to the EFS as being a primary. I must not have picked that up in the meeting. So this is our neighbors to the west, and there's the Panera. As we can see there, quite a bit of the main elements are the EFS product. I think they do have brick up on top. Actually, this is all EFS on the upper portion, and actually some of this is block. And these are all 3 Meyer outlots. Moving further west, same with the whole strip. So it's about a 50-50 split for this mall. And of course, the Meyer is quite a bit of EFS. These seem to us to be the newer buildings. We went, go back. Sorry, folks, I'm going in front of the Myers. The Big B Coffee as well. These were EFS elements on these buildings. So we thought it was, possible to be able to do that. And I'll get back to the design premise here in a second. We know further down Lake Michigan that there's a lot of older buildings. So those weren't really relevant to what we were doing, but there is a Taco Bell down the street that is just about almost, all EFS at that point too. So we get back up in the sky to where we are. let me pull up can everybody see that elevation?
Yep.
That's coming up. So if we look at the plan view, and I'm just going to take you back into the design portion that we worked out with Starbucks. Basically, they like the very contemporary, a little more up-to-date, flare, clean, minimalist, crisp, horizontal, rectilinear type geometries. So the plan is basically a convergence of two rectangles, two masses, if you will, that intersect each other. One being a more naturalistic wood, the other being a stone type finish. That's the ephes. The larger portion seen here in plan as this piece would rise above the wood. Then this would be where the rooftop units would be screened. So that was another factor driving this portion to be in the ephes or a lighter material. Because as you can see where it intersects over top of this building, and on another view, it intersects and goes over top of this building. For us to do a brick or a harder or a heavier material would be pretty tough. It's not very, very good for drainage and all those kind of things. So that's really just some of the background on why the materials were picked. Now, having looked at the comments that Tricia said, I could propose, if it pleases the commission, to take brick up a little higher, like the other strip malls, and along this east elevation, go up to a point at about 10 foot. That'd be a pretty nice line all the way around this building on this elevation and up here to split this, like the other malls, 50-50. We do all brick down here, a lot more brick on the drive-through side, and then we would do brick on this side. So then that would still give us some ephes up top. As you can see, this is the dash line, right? That's the roof line. And then the rooftop units are hidden within so that you don't see them. Same with on this side. So I could throw that out there. If we could have a discussion on that, we could take up a little bit more brick so that ephes wouldn't be so domineering. You wouldn't have the big ephes wall. At least it would be split 50-50. So could I entertain that out there, Tricia, and have a discussion on that?
I mean, like I said, we have consistently discouraged the ephes material as being a primary facade material. And while those buildings that you pointed out may look like ephes from the surface, I'd have to actually look at an elevation drawing to see what those materials consist of. You know, I mean, the Google tour of that corner was great. But I would need to rely on an actual elevation drawing that was submitted by an architectural group rather than the street view. And I should mention that I've been with the city of Walker for a total of 1 year. So I was not around when any of these site plan approvals came to the planning commission. But I do know that my predecessor and my boss, the director of community development, are both against that material. It's just not something that is gonna withstand the test of time. It allows moisture penetration, and it ends up looking bad quickly, more so than other facade materials.
Okay. So when we say, excuse me, a primary.
Well, I just want to say hi and introduce myself. So first, my name is Gabe Schuckman with Walker Retail Management. My company's Aurug USA. And Bo, are you spinning that thing around? Is that you?
Yeah.
You're giving me a headache, man. I swear to God, you were. I was watching you do that when Tricia was speaking, and Tricia, I almost fainted and lost consciousness when he was doing that a second ago. So, Juan, I want to just thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to be part of your community. We've done a few other projects, and we did one other project in Walker a few years ago, and this is our second project in Walker. We're beyond excited to be here. So thank you for taking the time. And then we do a lot of work, in and out of Grand Rapids. So even though we're Metro Detroit based, Grand Rapids is a second home to us. So we do a lot of Starbucks work, not only Michigan, but, across the country. So, we're very honored, to be part of the Walker community, do a lot of work with Starbucks. And I know we'll find, a great solution this evening. And, Trish should definitely hear everything you're saying. I just wanted to, the only thing I wanted to, point out as critical as, keeping your city beautiful and totally understand all the points, for Starbucks also, it's obviously a major concern, right? They're signing a tremendously long commitment to be at this project with us. And and Starbucks is doing business in a lot of different climates and environments. And for whatever it's worth, they were comfortable with the CFAS look. But I just want to make a note that this prototype that we've presented to you today, we spent months with Starbucks developing it, and this is their new prototype that they're utilizing across the country. So I just want to make sure that wherever we get to, I want you to know that we're trying to bring beautiful, high quality development and project. Trish and her team has just been absolutely incredible to work with. You guys have an all-star. We work with a lot of planning departments. They're beyond responsive, and they give us feedback. And sometimes you don't agree with everything, but they've been incredible to work with. But I just wanted you to know that this is Starbucks' prototype, and they are comfortable with it and understand where Trish is coming from. And we've heard that issue before, but we design high quality buildings, we build high quality buildings, and we want to be part of the community for many years. And we're never gonna do anything to disrespect your community or ruin our relationship with Starbucks. And Starbucks won't let us build something which is not gonna weather the test of time. So wherever we end up today, I'm beyond excited to be here, and I just want to introduce myself and say hi. And Bo, no more spinning of that Google Earth, man.
I'm getting vertigo all over the place. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to continuing this discussion.
Okay, this has been offered as a question for the commission. Tricia, I understand your position on that. I know that EFS, it's been used for a number of years, and I've seen evidence of the degradation that does take place over time. I'm not as up to date as far as what strides they've made to overcome those issues. So any comments from the rest of the commission concerning this?
Hey, Terry, this is Pat Lori. The Starbucks on Alpine, what material is that one made from, and what year was that put in? I can't remember. Do we know, Tricia, maybe?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
So I just did the most recent Starbucks that we did in Grand Rapids. There's the one in Jonathan, Georgetown Township, right behind the War Memorial. So I just built that one. So if you look at that one, it's a pretty standard. This is actually a little bit of a different, even a new prototype, because we're using that hardy plank material that you guys can see, on three sides of the building, which is an expensive and beautiful material. But that Starbucks itself was, Bo, and you designed that building as well. That was a masonry and EFS materials that we utilized over there. We're about to build another, Starbucks in Plainwell, I know, different community further south, which we just finished construction. But that one was hardy plank, EFS and masonry materials. How we designed that one as well. So, that's, I guess the biggest thing is that, I can't speak to the advances in EFS. Maybe Bo can speak to that a little bit more. But the biggest thing that I would say at today's meeting is that Starbucks, just like Walker wants to keep up, its brand and its reputation, Starbucks is the same way. Starbucks is not going to want to have a building which looks like crap, candidly, in 5, 10, 15 years. I mean, they're going to be in this location for 30 years. We're making a significant investment. They're making an over $1 million investment. And they wouldn't be making that investment if they thought EFS is a material that's not going to hold up. I mean, Starbucks is looking to build, 20,000 stores in the next 5 years. And the last thing they want to be doing for those 20,000 stores is, going and, renovating them and revamping them and doing all that work for the next 20 years. They wouldn't be doing that. Starbucks would say, hey, we'd rather be an all masonry if they thought that was the better product for them. But they would not be approving this material if they thought there were long-term deferred maintenance issues. Because one, they ultimately end up paying for it also, in the way the leases are structured. So this is my 2 cents, and I thought it'd be important for me to pass that along.
Thank you.
Is
Both?
Starbucks gonna own the building or are they just leasing it?
They're leasing it for myself. But how the leases are structured, they're triple net leases. So the property taxes, the property insurance, but most importantly, common area maintenance, which is a maintenance of the parking lot, the landscaping, and the building itself is passed back through the lease. They end up paying that. And that's how, for the most part, how all their leases are structured across the country. So that's the reason they get so involved in the design of these buildings, is for that reason. Because if the building is designed like crap, sorry for my, lack of eloquence, they end up paying for it, back through their triple net charges and their base rent.
Well, I'm gonna make the comment that the board members have heard me say before, that don't come here and, well, what about this? What about, this isn't, let's make a deal. It's staff indicated they don't like EFS, and that's the city's position. And I'm not excited about, well, what about this? And how about a little bit more of that? It's like, no, we're not making a deal type thing.
I don't think it's a function of making a deal. I just don't know why we should be held to a different standard than everybody else has. That's my only question.
The Starbucks on Alpine was built in 2008. The Starbucks on Alpine was built in 2008, approved in 2007.
Georgetown just opened up. I mean, so you guys are asking for most recent Starbucks. That's one of the most recent ones.
I was actually looking at some of the older ones to see how that material held up over the time. That's all I was looking for. So the one in Alpine's 13 years old, so.
Just to interject a second, a lot of times you'll see with the EFS, it's not so much that the material doesn't hold up. Often it's how it's detailed. You'll see a lot of ledges that are kind of flat up on a parapet or different trimmings. And if you don't slope them properly, dirt builds up, and as the rain comes down, it washes it down the building. So people don't maintain the product, just like anything else. A hardy plank or any type of product, if it's not rinsed off, if it's not properly maintained, is not going to look good over time. Actually this particular building is a very flat plane. There are V grooves that are cut in to give some delineation and breakup, and those grooves are at a 45-degree angle that will allow that dirt to rinse down during the rain. So that's what often you see a lot of those trails coming off on that EFS product, because it's not power washed often.
Okay, we've had some discussion on this. If we can, for a moment here, just go back, if there's any other questions for the applicant or the staff at this point. I do have one myself in terms of the site plan that's portrayed shows stacking for as many as 10 cars there. Can you give us a sense of the progression of the vehicles as they move through the property? What's the likelihood of stacking of this nature? And what are your peak hours of service during the day?
Hours of service are between 7 and 9 a.m. They typically, have a stack of 6 cars. We just show an additional stack of, of 4 just to show how the cars could stack more if necessary.
Because that movement into the in the driveway to come into their to the drive-through lane, it looks like it's a pretty tight turn to first get in there, and then as it would stack back, it would be even more difficult perhaps for vehicles to move in there. It just so if you only have a stacking of 6 or 7, that'd probably be a non-issue. But as you get busier during the day, perhaps that would be another factor. You said 7 to 9 a.m.
Yep.
And it's not open the rest of the day.
That was you. I thought you asked the peak periods. That's the peak period, 7 to 9. I apologize.
Afternoon peak at all, or is it
no, just a morning.
Morning peak. Okay. All right. This is a public hearing, and perhaps we're at this point, entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Support.
Motion by Stephen, supported by Tyler, to open the public hearing. All not in favor indicate by saying aye. We'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments from people in the audience concerning this project?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Tyler,
Support.
supported by Stephen to close the public hearing. All those not in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll close, public hearing is closed. Any comments, discussion concerning the project?
My only comment is about the facade, and I'm fairly neutral on it. It's been used a lot around, and we can see that. And if I think of anybody that wants to protect their image, it's Starbucks. So if they build with crappy material and it turns crappy, they're going to want to get it taken care of. I think it's kind of their problem, not our problem. It just seems like we're kind of beating it to death here. And you know, we have, on my building at work, we have a stucco entrance that's lasted 30 years. I had to have it repaired once when ice fell on it, but it's still looks great. So I know this is better than stucco. So that's my comment.
Tyler, if I may, the ordinance gives a list of acceptable facade materials. And then, you know, if EFIS is being proposed as a material that's not a primary material, if it's used for architectural details and not as a main wall material, then the planning commission could accept that. But the ordinance is pretty clear when it comes to what facade materials are found as acceptable.
So what you're telling me is that they have to have 50.1% of the building that's not EFIS.
It doesn't specify that specifically, but again, this is a planned unit development, and the planning commission has the discretion to allow for a surface material that that they're comfortable with. I should mention that the applicant that was first on the agenda here was asked to revise their entire architectural drawings to remove that the EFIS facade material that they had as a primary material. In my first presentation for that hotel, I provided a lot of photos that show what this material looks like over time if it's not installed absolutely perfectly. So those are my 2 cents.
Well, I guess I would then ask the opinion of the rest of the planning commission, or maybe Terry could do a straw poll, or I don't know what to do, Terry. So
I will offer from my experience working with it, EFIS, it can be, if properly installed and maintained, can keep its look. Another factor that comes into play is where it is located on the building facade. If it's in an area where there's a lot of foot traffic, shoveling, snow, things of that nature, then it doesn't hold up as well. They've shown, I believe, a brick course at the base of this wall. And I think what was described by Mr. Wynn was to perhaps take that hardy plank and bring it up around the building so that it is, as he described it, more of a 50-50. And that's those I think would be that part of the building would be that part that would be more apt to be experiencing issues with the elements more so than the upper portion. So that may be what he's described may be a way to be responsive to the concerns expressed by Tricia, but make allowance for a greater percentage of it to be the hardy plank. So in order to get this conversation going a little bit more, as it sits right now, is there if we could just have a raise your hand if you're in favor of what's been proposed to date.
Yeah, Terry, for my part, I could get on board with kind of the way that you've described it to maybe get a higher percentage of the building to another material and then give some flexibility on the other.
I would be okay with that as well.
I'm in favor of supporting staff. If the ordinance calls for no EFS or reduced amount, then so be it. They can come back, just like the hotel came back after they have revised their plans and this, oh, well, how about if we do this and how about if we do that? I'm against that. And back to the truck turning templates. Yeah, only the little Starbucks truck will come in delivery. It's like, you heard me say it at the other applicant. There's going to be a 53 footer in there and I'd just love to take a picture of it. I'd like the applicant to tell us which part of the landscaping that they want driven over, because that will happen. So there's the grumpy old man tonight.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
I don't think that's anything new, Tom.
Hey, buddy, behave yourself.
All right. Do we have anyone ready to offer a motion?
I can do that. For case 21-003, I'll make a motion to approve the final area site plan for the Starbucks project located at 4370 Lake Michigan Drive Northwest, also known as Lot C1 of the Westown Commercial PUD, as it does meet the standards set forth in the City of Walker zoning ordinance. Conditions of final area site plan approval: the applicant shall revise the architectural renderings to reflect an acceptable primary facade material to be reviewed and approved by staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. And I think our comments would reflect that we're interpreting primary facade being the majority and the changes that we're making to cover that, correct? Okay. The applicant shall revise sheet C3 to include do not enter or one-way signage that indicates the one directional drive approach for vehicles exiting the drive-through queue prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall provide a revised landscape plan with additional plantings along the Lake Michigan Drive frontage to be reviewed and approved by staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. The applicant shall provide truck turning movements and a standalone loading zone area on sheet C3. The applicant shall address items outlined in the city engineer's report dated 2/8/2021. Findings of fact from section 94-2137E. Final area site plan conforms to the current and proposed City of Walker master plan. The final area site plan is in compliance with the approved Westown commercial preliminary area site plan. The plan complements existing uses in the area.
Is there support for the motion?
I support that.
Supported by Joe. So we have a motion by Stephen, supported by Joe, for conditional approval of the final area site plan for this project, with the conditions as noted. And I guess a clarification on the standalone loading zone. Have staff work with the applicant as far as and whether that is denoted by pavement markings. If we're ready for the take a vote, Tricia, if you would please run the roll call, please.
Opposed over the EFS.
Say that again?
I'm opposed over the EFS issue.
Joe,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. And again, encourage you to continue to work with staff as work out the implementing the conditions of approval and moving forward with the project.
Thank you very much. We're very excited to be part of the committee, excited to work with planning. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too.
Well, we've come to the end of the agenda. Any other business updates?
I'm curious as to what iPad 5 and iPhone is. I'm still waiting to get Zoom bound. Outside of that, we have 3 items on the March 3rd agenda. We have a courtesy site plan review for Covenant Christian High School. They're proposing some sports fields over off Hall. And we have the piece of property that is directly east of the Amazon site for Great Lakes Capital. It's they're requesting a rezone from AA to IPUD. And then we also have the final preliminary plat for Summerbrook 2. And then March 17th, we have a PASP amendment for Northridge East. They'd like to make some additional changes to the PUD that is south of the railroad tracks. And then we also have a site plan review for a company called Acme Marine, who's proposing a light industrial building on the corner of Fruit Ridge and 4 Mile. And
Which corner?
the southwest. So just north of Irwin Seating.
Okay.
So I've got about 5 million plans sitting on my desk and 100 emails, but I'm catching up.
A lot of business activity, a lot of development activity continuing.
Yes.
Well, looks like we're at the end of the meeting. No other comments? Scott?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting
Okay.
adjourned.
Night, everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.